Okay. So well, I want to have this lecture about markets and some of the what's special about insurance markets. So, but first, let me talk about what a standard market is for a product is. You walk into a store, back when we used to walk into stores, and you saw a product you like, for example, a TV, and you saw the price for it, and you had this transaction. You said, that TV is worth it. It costs $500. I'm willing to pay $500 for it. And you have this transaction. You get something, the TV, and the firm gets something, which is your money. And it's pretty clear. What's happening with an insurance market, though? You're not really, it doesn't seem like you're getting any product, really. All that you're getting is coverage. And what is coverage? It's really just money that is paid to you or paid on your behalf in case something happens. That's how we should think of an insurance market. It's like you're trading money for money. That's weird. How does that create a mutually beneficial transaction between the two parties? That's the great thing about trade in markets, is that assuming no one's forcing you to make this trade, you're doing it voluntarily, and you're creating a mutual benefit by the transaction. Dual coincidence of wants. You both want something, and you're willing to trade and be better off. But in an insurance market, I don't think the firm wants to give you insurance if you're a sick person. You're likely to get sick, do they? They'd love to give you insurance if you're a healthy person, and they could tell for sure that you're never going to get sick. That's like, okay, we'll sell you this insurance policy. You're going to give us a bunch of premiums, and we'll never have to pay for anything for you. So why does it happen? Is anybody willing to give a comment about the question is, how could it be that both parties are better off? Because with the TV, it's obvious. You pay $500 for the TV because the TV is worth more than $500 to you. The firm sells it to you because it only cost them $400 to obtain the TV, and they're selling it to you for $500, so they get this markup on the TV, and they're benefiting from it. That's clear. We can see why that happens. I'm talking now about a pure free market for insurance where the firm says, yeah, I'll give you this policy, and the consumer says, yeah, I'll take that policy. What do you guys think? Why does that happen? Is this an odd question? How could it be? Because the thing you're trading is just money.
I think I might have an answer.
Great.
I'm currently taking the risk and insurance class
geez,
at the moment.
That's not fair. That's unfair. But go ahead.
Well, in that case, if someone else wants to jump in.
I don't think they will. I think you're the only volunteer.
So on a larger scale for the firms, the majority of insurance companies aren't going to issue insurance on things that they don't believe they'll make a profit on. So that's why it's hard to get things like flood insurance or insure something against like war or large natural disasters, where the majority of policies that they're issuing, the firm is going to get a profit from because they're making a decision to issue a policy that will protect, that they believe the risk won't happen often. And then on an individual scale, when you buy an insurance policy,
But before you go on to the consumer, let's nail down what's happening with the firm. And I'm trying to digest what you said. Firms will only give policies that make them a profit. Is that what you said?
On the whole, yeah.
Okay, explain on the whole.
So take for example something like car insurance. If your driving record is, bad, insurance is going to cost you more because the insurance company believes that you are more likely to get into an accident. But they still provide, like, even if you're a perfectly safe driver, you're still going to have car insurance, and the firm's going to make a profit off of you.
Okay, so I almost totally agree with what you said. There's one concept I wish you would add, and you're sort of saying it, and that's probability, and that's on average, they're making a profit.
Correct.
Wouldn't you agree? They don't make a profit on every single policy that they sell. Even the safest driver, you could give them a policy and then they happen to get wrecked, or someone wrecks into their car and drives away. these policies are not done because it's a guaranteed profit, like it is for the TV. The TV costs 400 for the firm, they sell it for 500. That's a guaranteed profit. Insurance companies don't have that. They don't have that luxury of saying, I'm going to sell you something that's a guaranteed profit for me. But they do on average, or as an economist would say, in expectation. That means if you take the expected value of the profit they will earn from this policy, it's positive, right?
Yes.
I think that would be almost everything you said was great. I'm glad you said it. The one thing I wanted to add was that firms are, why do firms do this? Firms get profit because, I'll rephrase what you said, because they only offer policies that will earn them profit in expectation. Is everyone okay with this term, in expectation? It basically means on average. If if it's a 10% chance of an accident, but 90% chance that there will be no accidents, you factor that in mathematically, and you can calculate what your profit is in expectation. And I think that's what Colin said, almost everything except for that one part about in expectations. And then I totally agree. That's what's in it for the firms. They actually are going to make some money off of this. Now let's talk about the consumers. Go ahead. Sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead and talk about the consumers if you want.
Oh, no, totally. I mean, it's just sort of the inverse from a consumer standpoint. Like, you oftentimes are better off financially paying the insurance than accepting the risk. So I guess something like with home insurance, paying that monthly premium, if your home gets destroyed in a fire, it's so much better in your financial interest to have paid small amounts of insurance premiums to be able to recover the majority of your lost assets.
Okay, so is this what they tell you in insurance and risk?
Yeah, it's a lot about mitigating risk and accepting loss.
But the question is, why is the consumer willing to pay for this insurance policy? Is it because on average they save money doing it? Is it because in expectation, remember this term, in expectation, that they will actually gain money, whatever the cost of the premiums is, it's smaller than the benefit they will receive from having the insurance policy? Is that why consumers do it?
I wouldn't think that that would be the case. I would more argue that most people are willing to pay this for the sense of comfort that they have from it. Like, it's more of a behavioral thing than a strictly economic speaking.
Okay, so you guys, I also teach behavioral economics. And in behavioral economics, I've spent, it was really before the midterm. We had a midterm in that class. And then the 2 or 3 weeks before the midterm, I talk about how, some of you are in that class, Daniel and Nick, maybe. I talk about the standard economic model for choice under uncertainty is called, loss aversion, good, but no. The standard economic model for choice under uncertainty is expected utility, or expected utility theory. And so I'm now going to refer to what Colin just said. He said it's almost a behavioral thing. Like, why do people, why do customers buy insurance policies? It's sort of a behavioral sense of comfort, is that he said, and that it's almost like not a rational thing. If they were being rational, they would just choose not to have any insurance at all. And that I have to disagree with. I mean, Colin's answer, as always, very good, and he's the only one that's talking, so I really appreciate it. Thank you for that comment. And but this one thing I have to change, and that is, I don't believe that economists, even whoever the instructor is for your class in the other, even if it's not an economics class, it might be in some other department, they don't think of insurance as being some irrational thing for a consumer to purchase. That they're only doing it because they're afraid and they're weak. They're weak-willed. They can't stand the risk, so they just say, I have to just pay any amount of insurance I can to just to give myself a sense of comfort. That's not how most economists pooling risk and cost. Sorry, I'm reading the chat now. If you're watching this uh, online later, you won't be able to see the chat, but the chat says, could it be a way of pooling risk and cost or mutualizing? So my answer to Nick, the person who just chatted, is that I personally believe that so firms are the ones that pool the risk. When a firm offers a insurance policy, they know that they might lose money on that policy. If they sell 10 policies, they might lose money on 8 of 10 of those policies and end up losing money. But if they sell thousands and thousands of insurance policies, they might lose some money on each one on some of them, but on average, this is where the expectation comes in. It's also called the law of large numbers. Kicks in. It says it's virtually impossible to lose money if you're selling so many insurance policies that are all in your favor. Like each one is a bet that's in your favor, and even if you lose some of those bets, you're going to win the vast majority of them, and you're going to still make some money. And I would call that pooling risk. And I do think firms do that. Now, if you're going to talk about an individual, did you mean that in like personally in your life you can pool the risk of certain things? I do that. For example, I never buy warranties. A warranty, an extended warranty on a product is just a way to get more money out of you, and they're almost literally never worth it. And in fact, if you just think of yourself as pooling all the risk of all the products that you ever buy and saving all the money from the warranties that you never buy, you would have so much money saved that you could just replace any one thing that breaks. If you have a computer and you buy an extended warranty, or I'm sorry, you don't buy an extended warranty and it still breaks and you're like, darn, I should have bought that extended warranty. If over the course of your whole life you never have bought any extended warranties, the money that you will have saved will be greater than the cost of a new computer. Um, in other words, you can still risk pool in your own life, but that's not what I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about that. Um, I want to talk about the insurance market for one thing, like health. Health insurance is a good example. I don't think an individual can pool much of the risk of health insurance. In other words, if you are hospitalized for months, that's a huge cost. And if you're uninsured, you could go bankrupt from that. You could have you lose all of your wealth, all of your assets, for a long-term hospital stay. That's not something you can pool with other risks that you take in your life. It's just simply too large of a cost. So I'm going to go backwards now in the chat. Daniel said loss aversion, which is a very important concept in behavioral economics. And actually, I do think there is some loss aversion that goes on here, but you don't need it. And because I don't think you need it, I probably won't talk about it in this class. Sorry. If you want to talk about loss aversion, let's go to take my behavioral economics class, and we'll spend a week talking about loss aversion, because I do think it's a real thing. Oh, okay. So Nick clarified his comment. He meant that firms pool risk in terms of many consumers, and that's absolutely right. But the key point is this: firms choose to offer policies that make them a profit in expectation. And then you add Nick's point, which is that because they're pooling their risk among many people with many policies, they're almost guaranteed to make a profit. It might not be a very big profit. And you guys you've all taken introductory economics the first semester, and maybe some of you have taken the second semester of micro theory, and some of you may be taking it now. Why am I bringing this up? Because I believe you might not get to this point I want to make in micro one, but you would in micro two. And that is, if you look at, if you try to predict what happens in a market in terms of prices and quantities relative to marginal costs, it really matters the structure of the market. Sorry, my nose is running a bit. I'm not sick. This is just, who knows what it is. I'm not sick. Um, it matters how many firms are in the market. If it's a monopoly, if it's an oligopoly, if it's a monopolistically competitive or just purely competitive market. Those are the big four that we would talk about, and which we would teach in micro two. I used to teach intermediate micro theory, so I know something about it. I would know about it anyway because I had to take it. Never mind. My point is that the more competitive the market for insurance is, meaning the more firms out there who are trying to get your be the one who insures you, the lower the prices, which means the slimmer the profit margins. So remember when I said firms are going to offer you a policy that generates a profit for themselves in expectation. Well, how much profit are we talking about here? Because if there's only one firm in the market, that's a monopoly. They're going to get a lot of profit if they're a monopoly, big profits. If it's a duopoly, that means two firms, they're going to get less profit because they have to compete with each other. This is why when we do exercises in this class, I make sure there's always at least two firms. And the two firms are always Colin and Daniel. It's because I want Colin and Daniel to sort of have to worry about the other person coming in and lowering their prices and making better offers. And so even just two firms is enough to lower the prices and shrink the profits of a firm. If there's three firms, of course, the profits will be even smaller, 4 or 5. As the market becomes more competitive, the more we would expect the profits to shrink. And in fact, in perfect competition, that shrinks all the way to zero. I don't believe that perfect competition ever really exists. There's always some frictions in a market. There's got to be something. Easy, it's never zero cost to enter a market or exit, or there's always some little frictions in a market, which mean we never get all the way to perfect competition. And so, okay, what's my point? Firms make a profit, but it's very slim, very, very small profit, because for the most part, insurance is a competitive industry. You can think of more than one insurance company. There's Anthem. Oh wait, what's the other one? Aetna. Um, you know, there's a lot of private insurance companies and there's a lot of public insurance companies. I said I could think of many, but now I'm forgetting. But there are a lot. Maybe there aren't a lot, but there are enough that the insurance market is competitive enough that they're not earning a lot of profit in expectation. They're just earning a little bit of profit expectation. And actually, this matters later on because of risk pooling. In fact, this business model only makes sense if you can pool, get a lot of different people to buy your product, because the margins are so small. And in fact, what I want to talk about, I don't think we're doing an exercise today. Just nobody seemed to care, but we will talk about selection, like adverse selection. This is probably the most important economic concept to add to you the way you think about insurance markets or any markets, but mostly insurance markets, is that if there's adverse selection, let me type that in the chat so you can see exactly how I'm spelling it. I've noticed, I've been teaching a long time, my students always mix up the word averse and adverse. Averse does not have a D. It means you don't like something, you want to avoid something, you have an aversion to it. That's like risk averse, means I want to avoid risk, I'm averse to the risk. Adverse with the D means it's sort of the bad kind of something. Adverse selection means it's the bad kind of selection. It's the kind of selection where if it's happening, if certain things are being selected, like you have a group of I don't know why I think of fruit, but you have a group of 10 apples and you go around selecting all of the oldest ones and then decide if you want to eat those, the old apples. Well, that's kind of an adverse selection process because you've selected out the worst apples, the ones that are the oldest, and probably you're not going to want to eat them if they have a lot of brown spots in them. Maybe this is something I do in my house because we buy a lot of fruit, and it matters too. It matters too because uh, if you're like me, you're always thinking what's the most efficient thing to do, and it actually could be more efficient to eat the older looking apples because then later on you could eat the newer apples as they age too, and you just end up always eating old apples. But um, at least none of them go to waste, which would be the least efficient thing to do. Would be to throw out an apple. Anyways, the term adverse selection doesn't mean averse, it's adverse. It says that if you have a firm, like an insurance company, and they're making a really small profits on each policy, but it works because of risk pooling. Nick brought up risk pooling, and it's an absolutely important concept I was going to talk about today. I mean, I have slides about all this, but I just felt like having a discussion, and okay, a discussion with one person, and one person's willing to talk, and three or four of you are willing to send chats. So I guess that's how the discussion works in the era of Zoom. Okay, risk pooling is a way for firms to exist and make a profit even when they're only making a small profit in expectation on any single policy. Any single policy that they offer is like a bet. They're betting that you won't get sick. Let's talk about health insurance now. If a firm offers you a policy, say, okay, you pay us the premiums and we'll give you this coverage in case you get sick. That's what the trade-off is. You buy the premium, I'll supply you with coverage. And those are the terms I want to use, I guess, when talking about health insurance: premiums, coverage. Um, sorry. If if there's adverse selection in the market, then the firm, which previously was just barely making a profit in this industry, may cease to exist. It may disappear. It may be impossible for them to offer you a policy that will make them a profit. And you wish they would offer you a policy like, wait, I mean, I know I may be sick, but I still want to buy insurance. They might just say, sorry, it is impossible for us to make a profit on you and everybody else who might buy insurance from us. This is important too. I don't offer you an individual policy. I offer a policy to a lot of people, and people take it. And I don't believe I'm allowed to discriminate based on certain aspects. Not that you would really want to, because this. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to explain adverse selection now. I put that in the chat. If you look at the chat right now, it says adverse selection as the most recently typed thing by me. That means that's what I want to talk about. Adverse selection. Let's get a good definition of it. You know what? I'm going to go to my slides. I'm going to cheat just so you see the definition um, that I have already. Where is it? Oh, also, I would like you to read a paper about adverse selection, which is on Blackboard under readings. I think there's actually two readings for this week. One is on moral hazard and adverse selection, and the other one is on um, employee employer based health insurance and how we got to be into a employee I'm sorry employer based health insurance became the dominant model of insurance in this country. Okay, so there's those two readings. They're both on Blackboard under readings. One of them is moral hazard and adverse selection. The other one is employer based health insurance. Okay, so let's talk about adverse selection. I want to give you a nice definition of it. Share. Maybe I want to do from slideshow from the current slide. Yeah, so that looks good. Now I want to put this up here. I have to shrink it a little bit more. Okay, adverse selection. What is it? This is what occurs when less desirable trading partners are the ones to volunteer to exchange. Okay, so what does that mean? I'll try to simplify that even more. It means if you are a health insurance firm and you offer a policy to anybody who wants to take it, but it's not the case that everybody wants to take it. Only the people who are less desirable trading partners are the ones who take it. What does it mean to be a less desirable trading partner in a market for insurance? Well, in health insurance, what makes you undesirable is if you're unhealthy. You get that, right? This is kind of what sucks about having healthcare for profit in this country is that every insurance firm that exists doesn't want you if you're sick. If you are an unhealthy person, if you're somebody who's likely to go to the hospital for any reason, somebody who's somebody who's likely to have a baby because babies are expensive. If you're somebody who has had cancer and might get cancer again, they don't want you. Why? Because they're probably going to lose money on you. I got a VCU alert. You guys probably got the same alert. Police emergency. I think it's okay, but hopefully none of you are around 10th and wherever it said. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. But this concept is very important for what we're going to talk about this week, and that is insurance markets can suffer because of adverse selection. Because every insurance company is when they make their policies, they're thinking, who are the people that are going to say yes to this policy and say, I'll buy it. If there's adverse selection, they will probably factor that in, won't they? I mean, they should. In equilibrium, the firms shouldn't be tricked. This is. I'm not going to give you a very. Excuse me. I'm not going to give you a very complicated notion of equilibrium, but I will tell you that once you've arrived at an equilibrium, there can be no other changes that happen in the market. You get to a point that's basically stable. That's just the concept of equilibrium. That the people participating are aware of what the other people are doing, and they don't have any way to change. There's no profitable deviation. In other words, there's nothing different I could do to make myself more money. I'm just going to accept the way things are. So in equilibrium, if a firm is facing adverse selection, what do they do? What do they do if they face adverse selection? That means that the healthy people aren't accepting their policy, only the unhealthy people. But when I say unhealthy, I don't mean the people who happen to be sick at the time, who happen to have like a flu virus or COVID. What I mean is somebody who's likely to have a lot of health issues in the future, somebody with diabetes, somebody with a smoker, somebody who's smoked their whole life, somebody who's had cancer. All of these things, if those are the type of people that will be willing to accept your policy, that's adverse selection. And it means a firm has to charge a higher premium for it. Okay, so if you look at my slides now, at the very bottom, you see that I have put something in quotes called a death spiral. You see that? You see that in the third bullet point on the bottom. Otherwise, there will be a death spiral. Does anybody know what a death spiral is? It sounds worse than it is. It doesn't involve actually I mean, it's not really about people dying. I mean, so indirectly it is, but it's not. Okay, my question remains: does anybody know what I mean by a death spiral? If not, I think it's worth explaining. Maybe I'll wait until to explain it when I get to that point. Okay, does everyone understand what adverse selection is? It's something I plan to ask you about on a quiz. To ask you to explain adverse selection, and the way you should explain it is, it's what occurs when one side of a market, one trading partner is faced with a situation where the other side, only the less desirable trading partners are going to exchange with you. And because of that, I'm faced with a worse prospect of trading than I otherwise would. If there were no adverse selection, I would be willing to offer you a premium of $200 a month. I don't know, is that high? I don't know what health insurance premiums are. Let's say $100 a month. Okay. If there were no adverse selection, I'd be willing to offer you $100 per month for health insurance. But because I know the only people who are going to accept it are the unhealthy people, I have to actually charge you more, $200 a month. But what if that causes even more healthy people to say, even like the medium healthy people to say, actually, now I don't want to buy that insurance. It's $200 a month. That's too expensive. So only the really sick people are going to accept it. Then you have to charge an even higher premium. Okay, now I got to charge $400 a month. It's the only way to pay for these huge medical expenses. And then the very sick people aren't willing to pay for that premium. The premium is too high, and then only the extremely sick people will accept this policy of $400 per month. And so you have to raise the premiums again. This is the death spiral. I said I would wait to explain the death spiral, but I haven't. I've told you. A death spiral is when premiums go up and the problem of adverse selection gets worse. Because adverse selection happens because of the premium, right? Why does adverse selection happen? Why is it that healthy people say, nah, I don't want that health insurance, but sick people, when I say sick, I mean people with background conditions, people with pre-existing conditions or something that will make them more likely to be unhealthy in the future. If those are the ones who accept it, that's already adverse selection. But the higher the premium goes, the worse the adverse selection becomes. So the premium goes up, worse selection, premium goes up, worse selection, premium goes up. That's the death spiral. And the death spiral can happen, especially when does it happen? It happens when people are very free to choose whether or not to get insurance. In other words, younger and healthier people don't have an individual mandate. So they can just completely stay uninsured. But other people really badly need the insurance, maybe because they have pre-existing conditions. But it's a private market, right? There's no government regulation that says, wait a second, you guys hear what I'm talking about right now? It's the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, was made to stop death spirals from happening. There were death spirals before Obamacare. There were people that could not get insurance, and the reason was they were too likely to get sick, and no private firm would ever want to offer them insurance. Why should you? There's no premium where you would say, I will take that premium, because of the death spirals. There were something like, I wish I knew how many people were uninsured, but it was tens of millions of people were uninsured. And furthermore, it wasn't just that they were uninsured, it's that the private market did not exist that would provide them insurance. I mean, this is something that people who are my libertarian friends, and I have good friends that are libertarian, this just they just don't, either they don't care or they don't understand that free markets that involve people just doing what they're doing for their own sake, for profit, it leaves out, it totally screws over some people for whom the markets are incapable of providing them with something that they need. The only way to fix that is with regulation, government regulation. For example, you could make a law that says pre-existing conditions, you're not allowed to exclude somebody from your policy because of pre-existing conditions. Why do you do that? It's to stop adverse selection from happening. Or you could have a policy that says there's an individual mandate for everyone to get insurance. We want the young and the healthy people to be included in this pool of people that will get insurance. Why do you do that? It's for risk pooling. Remember, risk pooling is the way to make a policy that just slightly gives you a profit into something that's actually a business model that you can do. It means there could be more healthy insurance firms if there's more risk pooling. It's another way to stop adverse selection. Gosh, it really sounds like I'm pulling hard for Obamacare right now. I don't want to be that way. I don't want to say what is the right thing or what is the wrong thing to do. But I do want you to know what adverse selection is. It's a natural process. You know, adverse selection isn't the result of some sort of chicanery and, you know, some kind of backdoor dealings with these rich fat cats saying, I know what we're going to do. I got this mustache. I can twirl up now a little bit. I can't quite twirl it up yet. But doesn't occur because of shenanigans, figuring out people figuring out a way to, how can we make sure those people aren't insured? I don't care about the sick people. I want them to be uninsured. That's not what happened. It happens on its own. It happens because people, when they're trying to decide whether or not to engage in some sort of transaction, are thinking to themselves, is it worth it for me? Is it worth it for me to engage in this transaction? And for people that are different levels of, one thing I didn't say here is asymmetric information. What does that mean? That means I have personal information about myself that you don't have. The firm simply doesn't know. They can't tell if you were a smoker or not a smoker. They can't tell if you exercise. Like, how do they know? You could lie about it. So because there's asymmetric information in the market, what I mean by that is you know a lot more about your health than the firm can ever find out about your health. That's where adverse selection comes from. The people who are young and healthy and confident and have never broken a bone, and they think I'm probably never going to have to go to the hospital. Why do I need health insurance? Those are the ones that are going to drop out of the market. And the people who do have recurring health issues are the ones who are going to stay in. And that natural process causes adverse selection. And that adverse selection can lead to a death spiral. And this is the case. This is This is the argument for having some kind of government intervention, at least to say these private insurance markets are not cutting it. Okay? You guys have any questions about that? Man, I've taken this. I'm sorry. I've gone over. Maybe I care about this. Maybe this is something I'm passionate about. I don't know why. I'm not a healthcare worker, and none of my immediate family members are. But maybe some of you are. Some of you know people, or in the insurance world or something. But let's stop here. So what I want you to do for next class, I should pick one of the readings. You know what I think? So here's what I'll say. The adverse selection reading is optional. The employer-based health insurance is required. Required in the sense that I could ask you about it on a quiz. Excuse me. But the other one, if you go to Blackboard, you'll see under course documents, scroll down readings. Yeah, the bottom two readings, employer-based health insurance and moral hazard and adverse selection. I will consider the moral hazard and adverse selection sort of an optional reading that sort of adds to what I just said about adverse selection. And we haven't talked about moral hazard yet, but we'll talk about moral hazard a little bit. Honestly, it's not as important as adverse selection, but that can be just another supplemental thing for you. But we will talk about this employer-based health insurance because it's the dominant model currently. Most people in this country have health insurance from their employer. At least I still think it's over 50%. I'd be shocked if it's not. I have health insurance from my employer, ECU. Okay, guys, I'm over time. Anybody have any questions about this week or next class? We're not going to have a quiz probably till next week. So no quiz this week, but reading for Wednesday, employer-based health insurance, debate on Friday. So you'll have homework, or if you're Shreyas, you'll have the debate. Probably is going to be just him. And if we have a quiz on this stuff, it'll be next week.